Welcome to episode 63 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership, and I'm your host, Yo Canny. So I was reflecting on episode 58 about apologies, and I thought bullying was a topic we could really dive into. So I found two books. One's called The Bully at Work by Gary and Ruth Namie, and they're PhDs. And there's The A-Hole Survival Guide by Robert Sutton, a Stanford professor. The A-Hole Survival Guide is actually a little different than A-Hole, but I didn't want to label my podcast as explicit, which I would have to do if I used the original title. So I'm keeping it clean, but I think you get the drift. These authors offer us lots of learning that I found very helpful. And if you know someone or you were bullied yourself, I hope that you'll find it helpful as well. I had encountered two episodes in the workplace. In both cases, the bully was senior to me and had more power. And in both cases, I suffered. I really suffered. So I found that some of the distinctions that these authors give us might be helpful to you, and they were certainly helpful to me to help me understand the full picture. So I hope you'll enjoy the listen and learn as much as I did on how to recognize being bullied. And here are some helpful strategies when dealing with bullies. Here you go. Enjoy the listen. Gary and Ruth Namie state early on in their book, The Bully at Work, the following, quote, "Much of the pain we feel comes not from that single missed opportunity, but from beating yourself up over not taking significant action to right a wrong," end quote. And you know, I can see that. I can still feel an incompleteness that I never got a chance to voice my indignation with my oppressor. In my case, I can see I didn't get a chance to right the wrong, to ask for an apology. But I can now by sharing my story with you, and perhaps there will be some strategies you can use too. They also add the following, quote, "The fact is that it was your employer who set the stage for the bully to operate as a loose cannon, failed to constrain him or her when told about it, and made you fend for yourself isolated at work. The true culprit is the employer, and you never could have taken on that reform task alone," end quote. Whoa. In my case, both my bullies were solidly endorsed by upper management, and when discussed with my manager, told to just get along, yo. He's a great guy. Well, not in my book. They weren't. Here's the definition that Namies provide. Bullying at work is the repeated health-harming mistreatment of a person by one or more workers that takes the form of verbal abuse, conduct or behaviors that are threatening, intimidating, or humiliating, sabotage that prevents work from getting done, or some combination of the three. They call perpetrators bullies, and those on the receiving end are targets. So much better than being called a victim, and they give good reasons for that language in the book. They call bullying psychological violence that prevents the target from performing work well. It's a kind of withholding of resources that the target requires to succeed in the workplace. And boy, that was my case for sure. One of my bullies was doing everything to make themselves look good and me humiliated. Here are some findings you may find of interest too, based on a survey conducted by the Workplace Bully Institute, which we'll call WBI for the rest of the episode, and Zogby International in 2007. Mind-blowing is that they found 37% of American workers have been bullied at work, and about 12% have witnessed bullying but hadn't experienced it firsthand. So nearly half of adult Americans are affected by it. And male bullies prefer public bullying, 57.8%, than female bullies, who do it at 48.6%. Mine was clearly out in the open. Female bullies preferred to abuse behind closed doors, 47.2% in the survey, and males were 38.3%. The majority of bullies are men, 60%, and the majority of targets are women, 57%. Female bullies target other women 71% of the time, and males target both men, 54%, and women, 46%. And here are some other interesting stats from the survey. The percent of targets that quit, 40%. The percent that get fired, 24%. And the percent that are transferred, 13%. And only 23% of the time, the bully is punished. I think there should be one more category. Target toughs it out. Percent of targets that tough it out. But we'll find a little bit more about that in a moment. In my two cases, I toughed it out, probably because I wasn't a direct report to one, and in the other, I was fired. So I fall into that 24%. Also in my case, I did not go to HR. Kind of knew intuitively it would not be safe to do so. So I only reported my experience to my manager, and then his manager told me, get along because he's a good guy. In the other case, HR was collaborating with the manager I had to get me fired, so I was definitely on my own. And we'll learn more about this in a moment. In the research the WBI did when targets did report the problem, 62% of the time employees made it worse or did nothing. I must have sensed this would happen to me too. Okay, so according to the survey, most targets endure stress in silence, like I did. And here are the numbers. 40% did not tell. 38% made an informal internal complaint. 3% sued, but probably found out, like I did, that if it's not specific to me, then you don't have a case. Only 15% made a formal internal complaint. And I should say that that percentage about suing was with a lawyer we contacted, but other lawyers and other states might have different points of view. So we'll talk some more about whether you take an action to fight back or not. Interesting, the survey showed 73% of bullied targets endured bullying for more than 6 months, and 44% for more than a year. Oh, boy. Based on those statistics, I'm sure it's not surprising to you when the Namies say, quote, based on these statistics, I'm sure it's not a surprise to you when the Namies say, quote, target silence and shame, coupled with the permanence of human aggression, probably ensure that bullying will never be completely stopped, end quote. In another survey that the WBI did in 2003, they listed the top 10 bullying tactics as 1. Blame for, quote, errors. 2. Unreasonable job demand. 3. Criticism of ability. 4. Inconsistent compliance with rules. 5. Threatens job loss. 6, provides insults and put-downs. 7, discounting or denial of accomplishments. 8, exclusion, icing out some. 9, yelling, screaming. And 10, stealing credit. The Namie state that bullies are workplace politicians. That's interesting, isn't it? Their goal is simple: to control the people they target. I hadn't seen it like that before, so this I thought was very interesting. In a section called Origins of Bullies, the Namies offer us this, quote, "It is absolutely critical that the target not ruminate about the bully's motivation. It's not easy when flooded with emotions, all negative, that beg the answer to the question, why did he do what he did? You can't believe someone can be that cruel. In fact, they can often be so cruel. Searching for the answer can prove elusive. It's a waste of your time." End quote. I found that very helpful because I was always looking at, why did I do something? Is it me? So it was good to hear that. They also said this, quote, "They have allies. We call them executive sponsors, and they're willing to block punishment for malicious behavior if they are ever exposed. The big bosses think the bullies can do no wrong. Targets have a hard time being believed for this reason." End quote. According to the WBI survey, bullies have the following support: executive or senior manager, 43%, peer, 33%, HR, 14%. And this one, even the target's peers, 10%. Oh, boy. That's too much, isn't it? So if we're not likely to be believed, what emotions show up? Maybe self-blame, anger, sadness, and shame? Those were definitely my emotions. Maybe you even begin to believe what the bullying is saying about you. And bullies win when targets accept personal criticism as if it has a kernel of truth in it. So I definitely let them win a few rounds, that's for sure. All or any of the emotions that come up are reasonable. I think that's what we have to remember. And the Namies offer the following ways to release anger. Reestablish your boundaries. Use active listening to communicate your willingness to understand any problems. Calmly tell the person that she is the source of your anger. Exercise by running, walking, working out, swimming, and I'd add yoga to the list. Throw back your shoulders and arms as you say, "Get off my back." And talk to friends, family, a professional, or all of them to sort out your feelings. And I would also say do a lot of writing. That was very, very important for me. There was also this. These are the top reasons bullied individuals gave for being bullied. 1, the target's refusal to be subservient, to not going along with being controlled. And that was reported by 58% of the respondents. Number 2, the target's superior competence or technical skills, reported by 56%. I felt these two reasons were definitely in my case. I'm like a bulldog that won't back down. And my bully certainly didn't know much about marketing, a field I'd been in for a very long time. And definitely I felt I had superior competence than he did. The other two reasons given were 3, the target social skills, being liked, maybe a positive attitude, and that was 49%, and 4, ethical, honest reporting of fraud and abuse, like a whistleblower type behavior, 46% of the time. In the A-Hole Survival Guidebook by Professor Sutton, one of the things I really liked was the chapter on A-Hole avoidance techniques, reducing your exposure. And it starts with, don't engage with crazy. Maybe as he says this, it's a good starting place because I was not a direct report to one of my bullies, and I was able to do this. And whenever I'd see him in the hallway, he'd get that Chavez look from me, a look crafted by my Hispanic ancestry. I thought my dad's Chavez look could melt ice. So I learned that from him. In my way, it was my way of saying to this person who is bullying me, I know who and what you are. You're not fooling me. And I could keep a distance from him and avoid at all costs. Here are some other strategies Professor Sutton offers. Ducking, like figuring out how to be home or on the road when your bully is around, or arrive late or arrive early for meetings, collaborative work, or social gatherings that you just can't skip. Slow the rhythm, which is try to delay and deny your tormentor reinforcement by waiting as long as you can before you respond to nasty messages and or phone calls. Hide in plain sight, like wearing an invisibility cloak as protective camouflage. Blend into the background by saying as little as possible, being boring, doing work that is neither terrible or terrific, and hiding behind a bland and blank expression. I know for me, I would tune out, my friends. I developed a system, I'll share it with you, where it looked like I was taking lots and lots of notes, but I'd be writing myself code, just in case someone looked over, taking the first letter of the sentence, like, for example, this guy is a royal jerk, so it would read TGIAR. And it sure made me feel better and even smile when I would write my code during a meeting. He also suggests get a human shield or bully blocker. And this could possibly be your boss if you're lucky enough to have one that gets it. I didn't. Or recruit a friend within the organization. I did have a fellow female peer in my department who I talked with, and she got it. It was nice to have someone who understood and could watch out for me in that area. Another suggestion was tag team partners. One thing I did was that I trained the male manager who reported me to take on any coordination with the bully if needed. And the bully, by the way, did not bully other men, so he wasn't in harm's way. Establish safety zones. Mine was closing my door to my office and or taking a walk nearby. Those were my safety zones. Activate the early warning system. I didn't have this, but it sounds good. It would have been nice to have someone send an alert via phone call or message or email to help you know that the bully is in. So before you decide to fight back, though, the Namie suggests considering things not to do after you've discovered you were bullied. So here's their list. Do not trust HR. They work for management and are management. Simple facts. Do not ask for relief from the bully's boss. This is the person who loves him or her most. Do not tell your story from a purely emotional injury angle. It always scares away potential supporters, even family and friends. Do not share your voluminous documentation with anyone at work. No one cares as much as you do, and in the wrong hands, it can be used against you. Do not ask others, like HR, union reps, management, to make the bully stop for your sake. Their interaction will disappoint you. Rather, you will make the business case and ask them to stop bullying for their own self-interests. Do not pay a retainer to an attorney until you've exhausted cheaper alternatives to get your employer to take your complaint seriously. And lastly, they say, do not confide in anyone at work unless they have demonstrated loyalty to you in the past and right now. They also make the point, do not attempt bully busting unless and until you are bully-proof. In the A-Hole Survival Guide, Professor Sutton says to consider this about fighting back. Quote, make no mistake, doing battle with a-holes is risky business. Once they notice your efforts to stifle their rudeness or contempt, they can get mighty riled up and vindictive and take it out on you, end quote. He suggests that you think about 3 resources. 1, how much power you have or don't have. Like in my case, I had very little. 2, how much documentation you have to avert a he said, she said situation. And 3, do you have others united with you, or is your fight alone? He cites an interesting study where if bullied employees banded together to fight back, authorities punished 58% of the abusers and none of the bullied employees. But when employees battled alone, only 27% of the bullies were punished and 20% of the bullied employees were fired. Gosh. All right. Maybe that's where I fell. So in the words of my daughter Emma's favorite Disney movie, Dinosaur, the character Aladar, when he's leading the herd to a safer route and comes face to face with the monstrous Canator, he says, and you can hear the herd joining the roar to scare off the Canator like this.
No! Don't move! If we scatter, they'll pick us up! Stand together!
I'll have to link the video in the show notes in case you want a little trip down memory lane. So the Namies offer the following 3 action steps to stop bullying. And I'll add here that you may do just steps 1 and 2 or just step 1. Each of us has to evaluate our situation and what works for us, so I'd suggest considering these, but do what's right for you. So step 1, name it. Legitimize yourself. Educate yourself. You can check out the WBI website, and I'll put that in the show notes for you. Naming and acknowledging seems to be a theme we've encountered in previous episodes for sure. Step 2, take time off and check in with yourself mentally and physically. And I did not do this. I just kept working harder, trying to think that if I worked hard, maybe it would go away. Maybe there was some stubborn pride on my part that I wasn't going to give this jerk the satisfaction of doing bad work. I was going to be valued as an employee because of my work, no matter what. I don't know if I would do that again. In this step 2, the NAMI suggests checking out your rights as an employee, like the internal policies. Remember, the employer are complaint takers, investigators, jury, judge, and executioner, and they own the process. They may unfairly brand you as a troublemaker, which is what I sensed in my case, so I kept silent. You might also expect retaliation from the bully. They can't stand to be exposed. And step 3, expose the bullying. If you choose that path, make the business case. Practice what you'll say and deliver. If it doesn't go your way and you find yourself banished, try to remember once the shock of everything wears off. You are controlling how you've left the place. You were going to leave anyway, and you brought sunshine to the dark side. You let your employer know what was wrong, and you can go, heal, and make yourself safe. In my case, I didn't get the satisfaction of exposing the bully beyond my manager, but I'd like to think the universe took care of things for me. And I did have a little smile when I heard that this guy was laid off in a reduction of force. I can't say why, but maybe he wasn't such a good guy after all, and those senior executives could protect him after all. And one other side note, the boss that had me fired didn't last long in his position either. He was laid off less than a year later. Being fired got me out of a very toxic situation, and while it took me time to heal, I'm grateful for the learning and was so grateful to be gone. I'll end today's episode with this great quote from Hal Lancaster, who spent more than 30 years at the Wall Street Journal as a reporter, editor, bureau chief, and columnist. He said, "Getting fired is nature's way to telling you that you had the wrong job in the first place." Thanks for being here and for listening. And I hope that you feel better if you've been bullied or being bullied by understanding more of the dynamics of what's going on and making it less about you. Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcast, and join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. You can also email me at yo@yocanny.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're going through some bullying or you know somebody who is and I can help at all, please do not hesitate to contact me. You know, my friend Mary, who is a listener, shout out to you, Mary. Thank you for listening. She's someone I share breakfast with every couple of weeks, and she asked me how I selected my topics. And I told her, Mary, I seem to just get on a roll and they come to me. They just flow. So you might be asking, what's coming after bullying? Well, have you heard of mobbing? Oh, in my research on bullies, I came across the term and said, yep, that's happened to me too. And I wonder if it's happened to others and don't have a name for it. And we've learned that it's super important to have a name for things to help us acknowledge what was going on. So mobbing is when groups of people get together who intentionally target someone. And kind of like the bully topic, I'll have some rich examples in my own life I can share where this happened to me. I'm sure grateful for the examples. Who knew that when I was suffering along, they would come in so handy for these episodes? Plus, we've got some great guests lined up through April, and there's so much more to come. So thanks for being here, and talk to you soon. Bye.